Hi, everybody, and this is Kylie James, and you're on You're the Magic Live Chat. And today we've got Maria Griffin joining us. And Maria is a dear friend of mine. We have known each other for, oh gosh, I would say over 20 years ago now. And it was when we started working in Canberra. So, welcome, Maria. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Kylie. It's lovely to be here.
It's so nice to see you. And you're based up in Brisbane too.
I
So, how's that
am.
sunny Brisbane going?
It's going very well. It is perfect August weather here and it's just beautiful, clear, sunshiny days. And it's starting to get that little bit warmer. And yeah,
Sounds
it,
delightful.
it is lovely. It is really
Yeah.
lovely.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Um, to our listeners, I really wanted to chat with Maria because she's an inspiration. She is just an amazing lady who has just done so much in her life from a career perspective, but also a personal perspective as well. And she's been on a massive journey, and I'm going to let her to share all of that with you. But I've heard Maria on lots of different podcasts, but I think for me as well, I've also watched Maria go through her transformation journey. And I really, really wanted to share that with our listeners because it is just magic and it just shows how much determination, but also that some of our journeys are just not, they're not linear, they're not straightforward. And there are, bumps in the road that we have to kind of figure out how to get over. And I've watched Maria do that, and it's just amazing. And to see her fly now is just so inspirational. So, Maria, I'm going to hand it over to you. And I would absolutely love if you can tell us a little bit about yourself
Hmm.
and who you are, and
Yep.
then a bit about your journey. And then we'll kind of just chat about stuff and life and all of
Sounds
those
good.
things.
Excellent. All right. Well, how to describe my journey and stuff. So, as you mentioned, we met down in Canberra. So I moved down to Canberra as a graduate. I was 20, and many of my old managers love to remind me that they were at my 21st, which we had in the office and that sort of thing. So yeah, I went down to Canberra at a very young age and was there for um, just over 10 years, but stayed in the public service for almost 18 years. So that's sort of part of my transformation. As one of my old bosses said, that I was brave to step outside the comfort zone and move then into the private sector. So I've always worked primarily around people in primarily in employment services. I've got a real passion for helping people find their career or their job, and because that's key to anyone's identity and that sort of thing. So that's been a real part of my journey. What else? So yeah, I've been in Brisbane for almost 14 years, no, 13 years now, which is
Wow,
crazy to think about how long
that's
it's
gone
been.
fast. That's gone
It
so
has gone
fast.
so fast. So I
Mhm.
moved up as part of, still with government, moved up in 2009. And yes, I'm still here, which is fantastic. So I took a bit of I was involved in a federal government employment program, or as part of the team that put it up to cabinet. And I said to my staff as we were putting it up, and I said, if this gets approved by cabinet, that's my job. I'm going to apply for that. I want that job. I want to move back home. And my dad was just turning 80, or it was had just turned 80. And I was like, felt really, I'd seen another manager lose a parent, an elderly parent, and I'd seen the heartache of being away. And I just went, I don't want that for myself. And I don't want that, my dad to, like, nothing was wrong with him and that sort of stuff. But it was just the push that I needed to get home and to reevaluate priorities and stuff. So I moved back to Brisbane in 2009. The thing went through budget, got the job, and it sort of started a new career or a new phase of my
Fantastic.
life in Brisbane, which was fantastic. And yeah, so then was there and had 9 years with Dad before he passed away, which was amazing and just so worthwhile and that sort of thing. So yeah, and then I've been for the last 5 years working in almost 6 years working in the private sector in employment services as well, which was a huge change. But that change also, as you mentioned sort of in the intro, helped me make other changes in my life and to realise that I could be brave, not just with career, but with my life. So I had always been overweight as a child and as an adult. And so when I was in Brisbane, I got very comfortable and my weight sort of ballooned. And in the end, I was almost 172 kilos, 171.9. Yeah. And I made the decision as I went to the private sector, and that went quite well. I was like, oh, wow, I can do these brave things. And so I also then made the decision to have a gastric bypass surgery where that helps you lose weight. So you have a tiny tummy, but you also have part of your lower intestine removed, so you don't absorb as many calories, because I am unashamedly an emotional eater. And so that helps me not absorb as many calories, but I have to be very careful about what I eat so that I'm not nutrient deficient and that sort of thing. So I did that 5 years ago almost. And yeah, that has been a success. I've lost almost about just over 70 kilos.
Wow,
so I hover around the 100 kilo mark, either under or over. I'm a little over at the moment, which is annoying, but you know, it's part of life and that sort of thing. But yeah, that's
and
really
70 kilos. You can't you can't shrug at that. Like
that's
fantastic.
It's a whole many people go, oh, that's a whole person, or that's my wife and my small. I had a boss that used to go, oh, that's my wife and my toddler. Like, so it does make you realize that it is a huge, and I know it's a huge achievement, but I guess the achievement is continuing to keep it off and to maintain those habits and all of that. So yeah, it's been the last 20 or 24 years since I've been in the public service. 23 years has been quite the journey.
Absolutely. And you know, I think, you know, I've seen your transformation, and one thing that I am just so incredibly proud of you for is yes, the journey that you've been on, but also you actually put it out there. You actually started a public was it a group or a page?
Facebook page.
A Facebook page where you actually shared your journey.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like an accountability type thing.
Yeah.
And that's massive when, like, I know when you are, you know, overweight and, you know, you're hiding behind so much stuff to then go and say, I'm just going to step out and say, here, everybody, this is me. Watch my journey. That's actually a really big thing. And, you know, how did you shift from a mindset of I'm kind of going to hide to, you know, this is me and this is what I'm doing? Or was that not an issue for you at all?
I think I'm probably an oversharer in life. And when I was making the decision to have the surgery and that sort of thing, seeing a few people online doing it helped me make the decision that it wasn't as scary as I thought.
Yeah.
So, you know, there was a particular blogger that I followed and she was a similar weight. And she's literally just, I'd say she's pretty senior in management in South Australia, from what she shared online. And I was like, if she can have 5 bites of a meal, like, so she would post pictures of her meal and stuff. And I was like, and food was always a big thing to me. So I was like, oh, how will I cope? And then I look at what she ate and go, could do that. That's not too difficult. Like, this is not a huge, scary thing. Look at her meals. They're nutritious. They look delicious. She's not missing out. Like, there's a little mini burger or whatever it might be that I was like, oh, this is achievable and I'm not going to deprive myself and all of that. So it was by watching others. And so I felt like it was an accountability thing. And certainly I think that's part of my personality, to be really honest and authentic. And that's what I'm like as a leader as well. But so I just didn't feel like by hiding it that I would be my true self. Like, I know that there's people that do make the decision to hide that they've had surgery or whatever, but by me sharing it, I know of multiple people that have contacted me either on the down low or, through my page that have gone, you've inspired me to do this, and that's really rewarding. Like, so in my job, I always go, look, this is a really hard thing, but if I've helped one person get a job from this initiative, the effort I've put in is worthwhile. So it's really rewarding to think about the people that I've helped inspire. And I haven't done it for inspiration or anything like that. It was more, as you say, an accountability thing for me to go, remind yourself about how hard it was to find clothes that fit you, or how depressing it was to go shopping and you couldn't find anything. I was always a pretty confident plus size sort of person, and I took a lot of pride in wearing stuff that was relatively trendy or stylish. I still do that, but as a plus size person, you feel like you get so much judgment for different things that I was like, no, I really, so I paid particular attention to that. So I would be taken seriously. And then as I was losing or going through the journey, I was like, no, I still want to be open about this and, let people know about what I was doing, but also just to remind myself too of the changes that were happening and the impact it was having on my life. So, and sometimes it's really amazing to do things. And so tomorrow I'm flying. And so every time I get on a plane, it's amazing to think, oh, I don't have to ask for an extender. Oh, I'm not fraught with worry the day before about, oh, is there a seat next to me? Or I'd check the app to go, has someone sat next to me? Is there another block of 2 seats that I can move to and hopefully no one books into that? Like, I'd have so much anxiety about the space I was taking up. And now I don't. I literally sit there and, I don't need the extender, and I always look at it and go, oh, wow, look at how much extra I've got. Or I get annoyed because they've, cut some of the seat, and I'm like, oh, that's not a very long thing. That's not as impressive as normal, that sort of thing, where it just helps me remember how far I've come from. And so if I do want to skip a workout or eat something really that's not as beneficial for me, it does remind me going, do you really want to do that? Because you could go backwards. And it's a good reminder.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we all need the reminders from time to time. It's, no matter what journey we're on. And I guess the question that I have sort of next is, yes, there's a physical transformation, but it's so much more, just having talked to you numerous times that, yes, it was 70 kilos and you can now, walk into a store and, buy certain clothes and those sorts of things. But there's a mental and an emotional aspect to all of this as well, and mindset.
Oh, absolutely.
And how has that journey been? Because that's probably the tougher part, to be
definitely.
honest, than the physical stuff kind of flows on from that.
Yeah. So you can just eat small meals and you will lose weight, but countering the sort of foods that you might crave or how you cope with emotions and that sort of thing, it's been a huge journey. So when I first saw the surgeon about surgery, he sort of said to me, oh, you're a super heavyweight. And people were like, oh, didn't you get offended by that? And I was like, oh, well, he's a surgeon. He's talking mathematically, yes, I've got a lot to lose. He straight away put me in touch with a weight loss psychologist and a weight loss dietitian. So they're specialised in the bariatric surgery, which was fantastic. And now to this day, I see them every quarter. Now, do I need them? Probably not, but it's an awesome check-in. So just like you might have a leadership coach or something like that, for me, it's just a great way to go, I'm not doing well here, or this has happened in my life and so I'm having trouble with this sort of part of it. But I have found that the whole part of my weight loss journey, I've had to work at and I've had to learn stuff. So, when you first have surgery, you're only having liquids and that sort of thing. And you'll realize that you miss the crunch of things. like just a textural thing. And so even just that you're like, or I really like going out with my partner to do this, and food's so important as part of that. How am I going to do that differently? Or how will I have that connection with these people? Or I found my family, we're all givers of food and all of that. So how can they show love, and how can I show love without food? And so it was a huge thing, not just for me, but for people around me and that sort of stuff. And working on that sort of psychology of food and what it's meant to me in my life. Like, I grew up as a kid. If I got good marks, we'd often get like a reward, like, oh, we're having a special meal for you, or have you got a special dessert, that sort of thing. So food was a reward. So that, and even like within the workplace, you want to celebrate something, let's get a cake, let's have morning tea. Now, that's not to say you can't do that. And certainly in the work that I do now, we're always giving food as like an incentive or as a reward and stuff. But I am very conscious of it, that there's got to be other rewards as well. Like, you can't just always rely on, a box of donuts or cupcakes or whatever. So yeah, I really, the psychology of food, dealing with emotions, was massive. Absolutely massive. And I realized that food was intertwined with all of that. So it's been a lot of internal work to really understand how I operate as a person, values, all of that. Like, it was all, even just habits and things that you didn't realize that you did. And really self-consciously having to change internal thinking cues and all of that sort of thing. So it's been a lot of internal work around that sort of stuff. So, at different times in the last 5 years, I've gone through little, or not really little crises. My brother had a really bad accident, and that precipitated just before I had the surgery. So I had my mum pass away, and then my brother had the really bad accident. And it really reinforced to me that life is short. So make these decisions and do it, because you've got to live life to the full. That's not to say I wasn't beforehand. I was, but just in a different way. And at times I probably didn't have the energy to do everything that I wanted to do. Whereas now, still probably don't have as much energy, but that's because I'm going and exercising and all of that. But it's just so much easier. So yeah, there were huge changes. And then, like, as I said, Dad passed away, and that was after I'd had the surgery. So I couldn't use food to comfort eat. I had to actually deal with the emotions of grief, or the stress of dealing with the estate and all of that sort of thing. So yeah, there's a lot of internal work that I've had to do, or that I've rung the psych and said, I'm going through something, I need to see you more often, or I need some help with this. And I don't know, I think probably the biggest thing that's come out of it is that I'm really also open to say, yes, I see a food psychologist. Yes, there's technically a food psychologist, but that we deal with all sorts of issues that I've got, whether it be anxiety or whatever. And I'm really proud to say that I deal with that sort of stuff, because so many people are also really scared about saying, I go see a psych or whatever. As I said, I share too much, but I'd rather share this to be able to say to someone, you know what, it's okay to say that you need help.
Absolutely. I was just about to say that there's this stigma about asking for help, or asking, whether it is a psychologist, a coach, a mentor, a friend, your parent, whoever you need to get that help from. But there is a stigma about it. I think if you can get through that and actually say, this is going to benefit me, someone's a different perspective, or maybe just talking it out, and you hear it aloud. And all while you were talking there, one thing that kept jumping out at me was, you have to own your story.
Yeah,
you have to own what's going on. And once you own it, you can then control it. It's whereas if you don't own it, you're kind of giving it away, and you're actually being just a part of your story, rather than actually being the story, if that kind of makes sense. And so by you saying, well, actually, this is me, this is what I'm going to do about it, and I'm going to get to there, you know, and I don't have a time frame on it, but I know I'm going to get there. And there's going hurdles that I'll have to jump over.
Yeah.
I'm on the journey, so let's go.
Yeah.
And that's you taking your power back, you know, your ownership back, your control back, all of those sorts of things. And it's you in the driver's seat rather than you being in the passenger seat. And I think that's
absolutely
incredible.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. It has been a huge thing, but it was funny as I made the decision to leave the public service. It was also around, there was weight stuff happening at the time, but I sort of reflected back on, things that happened in my life. And I was like, am I really comfortable with where I am? Am I comfortable with, at the time, I felt like I was being a bit taken for granted and stuff. So I was like, no, I think I'll make a change. But it was that taking control and going, what am I going to do about it? But also for me, reflecting back to what I thought of was, what would 18-year-old Maria do? Like the one that hadn't been, that isn't worrying about paying a mortgage or whatever, full of bravery, all of that sort of thing. I thought, what would the optimistic 18-year-old want to do? And so, I let that sort of guide me rather than being, I was scared, absolutely. But and that came into having the weight loss surgery as well. I was like, life is short. 18-year-old Maria would have tried anything. And I had. At 18, I'd tried every single diet. And at the time, there weren't there were diet pills, but not many, but not like what there are now. And so I tried some of those and that sort of thing, and it wasn't working. And then I was like, well, surgery is an option now, so why aren't I thinking about it? So, as I do, I'm a bit of a researcher. So I did lots of research and looked at stats and all of that sort of thing and made my decision about who I thought was the best and went with them and had a meeting and all of that sort of thing. And sort of then made my decision. And so as you would know, because of losing all the weight, I've also had skin surgery now to remove the excess skin. So I did the same. I went and saw all up 3 different surgeons to get their opinions on that, but really researched it, cost, quality. It was like a little work project and that sort of thing that I was like, okay, what are your reviews like? Show me some of your photos. What's the cost of it? How do you do it? What's your approach? And even just, getting to know them and that sort of thing. So I wasn't, I didn't tell them that I was sort of auditioning them, but for me, I had to find someone. When you're spending a lot of money on this sort of surgery, I was like, no, if the first doctor isn't respecting you or listening to you, then I am going to move on and that sort of thing. And so I did that. But that's the same as when I moved suburbs, I went to 6 different gyms and I basically said to them, you've got a week, I'll do a week's trial with you. And if I like your gym, I'll stay. But if not, I'm going to move around. I've got, I think I had 8 gyms close by where I live. So, I could try them for a week each and just then make a decision. So that's sort of my analytical brain coming over. But I was really, as you say, I was in the driver's seat. I was like, no, this is my choice. I'm a consumer and I'm going to evaluate you on whatever is key to me. And make a decision. So I did that with the surgeon. I did that with my gym. So, but I'm not ashamed of that.
Sorts of things,
New car, I've got a spreadsheet about the car too.
We're getting a picture, it's all good. Maria's like spreadsheets, and
I don't mind my data.
So what out of everything, if you look back on the last 5-10 years, is there, obviously there's, we talked about some pivotal moments, but is there one thing that you're just like, boom, this is the ultimate, I'm so proud of myself kind of moment that you've had, from a, whether it be work or personal related, where you've just gone, you know what, I just kind of, no regrets kind of thing.
Yeah. I would have to say leaving the public service. Absolutely. So I love the public service and I love the journey that it gave me. And oh my God, the career opportunities and all of that. Like, and, you know, I would always recommend the public service as a place to work. And I absolutely loved it. And still got many friends there and respect the work that they do because it's hard work and not well respected by the community and that sort of thing. But it just got to a point where, particularly in the state office, and we didn't have, you know, all the fancy working from home and being able to be in a state office and do Canberra sort of work at that time. We were all pre-COVID now. I just couldn't do the work where I felt it was valued, and I wanted to progress and I wasn't able to progress from a career point of view. And I'm really proud of myself for I'd probably stayed there for too long. But I'm really proud of myself for actually pulling the pin and deciding, no, I am going to be brave. And like people that I worked with or staff that I had were like, you are crazy, absolutely crazy. What the hell are you doing? Oh, and they said, oh, you'll never last in the private sector and all of that. And I was like, what? You know, like, I'll be fine. So like all of that sort of stuff. And I was like, okay, interesting. But also just even the, you know, the golden handcuffs of super and all of that. And I was just like, oh, well, it's just super. It's just money, you know, like, because I'd seen, and I looked at some of the people there and I went, oh, can I really do another, at that time, it would have been another 25 years at least of work there. And I just sort of went, I don't want to be a jaded, cynical public servant. And yet again, I thought of 18-year-old Maria or 20-year-old Maria. I had a few cynical public servants that I worked with when I first started, and I was like, I never want to be like you. And I realized that if I was just staying there, that I was going to turn into that cynical public servant, and I didn't want that. So I'm so proud of myself for moving out into, you know, the scary world that is the private sector. But yeah, that helped me realize that I could be brave in so many ways. So as soon as I moved, I had success in my role, and I felt like it was where I needed to be, and I felt appreciated, and I got lots of opportunities. And it was fantastic. And really reinforced that it was the right decision. And yeah, so that was fantastic. And then I just realized that, I could do other brave things like having, and so like literally within less than 6 months of moving, I then went, oh, okay, I'll go have weight loss surgery. Now, someone that I'd worked with in the public sector had similar surgery, a colleague of mine, and he'd taken, I don't know, 8 weeks of leave off. Now, I left the public sector with hundreds of days of personal leave, and then I go to the private sector with, and I think I barely had maybe 10 days. And I was like, okay, that was a stupid decision. I might have like used some of that leave before I left to have this surgery. Like, come on. But yeah, I only had a week off. So I had a week off for the surgery, and then I had a week working from home, and then I was back trying to have my liquid or pureed meals, because you basically go back to eating like a baby. You go through liquid, purees, soft food, salt, and then get onto solids. So you get back onto solids and then start to learn the size of your tummy and what you can and can't eat and what your tummy is going to tolerate. But yeah, so if I hadn't have gone to the private sector and made that move, I don't think I would have made any of the other changes.
Wow.
So
I like on your story about that resonates with me so much, because
you did the same. You were brave.
And it's not a small decision. It went through my head for years before I actually ended up making the decision. And you have to go through all your fears and all of those sorts of things. But one thing that and you sort of mentioned it a little bit before, was the fears that others project on you when you're making these big decisions, whether it is about changing jobs, moving cities, having surgery, leaving relationships, whatever those big decisions are. But when you talk to other people, what I've found with some of my journey, it's amazing what kind of comes back at you. And it's like you've got to put up like a bit of a shield to say that's your stuff.
Yeah.
It's not my stuff, because otherwise it can derail you from continuing with the path that you're on. And it doesn't mean that they're wrong and you're right. It's not about that at all. It's just that that's where their thinking is at. Your thinking is in a different space. How did you kind of deal with that? Because I've sort of talked about, you got to put a bubble around yourself, or a shield up, or your arm on, or there's so many different kind of terminologies that you can use with this. But yeah, what did you how did you cope with all of that, I guess?
So I definitely agree with the armor, like in terms of like sort of the shield and that sort of thing. So I had sort of developed some sort of strategies of going, okay, that's your fear, that's not my fear, or that's your issue. I'm just going to deflect that back at you. That's not my issue. Going through those sort of, for me, I guess, brain training exercises and that sort of stuff to go, okay, that's your problem, not mine. But the other thing that a previous manager of mine had sort of said to me about, do this sort of exercise. I was quite worried about a particular work project, and she was like, let's just break it down here. Okay, so you've got some risks here, but what's the absolute worst that could happen? Like, let's be creative. What is, if we don't get this project up, what's the worst that could happen? Like, the minister yells at us, or this could happen, or what, is someone going to die from it? No. What's the worst really that's going to happen? So like leaving the public service, you're never going to cope. You're not going to have any success there. What's the worst that could happen? I get sacked, And is that really such a scary thing? Well, it is, probably from my ego. I was like, and I go and get another job, or I go into state government, or, that shows me that my skills aren't here, and I use other skills and do this sort of stuff. And I guess that helps me. So as I make a decision, what's the worst going to happen? So I actually do think about it from okay, well, so if this goes wrong, what's really going to happen? Like, am I going to die? All of that sort of thing. Or I think about, on my deathbed, will I really care about this?
Yeah.
That sort of stuff. Like, will I regret this on my deathbed? Like, I can tell you that in the past, I've done late nights stressing about some particular thing. I know that there was a run of work in a particular year where I was, finishing at 7 or 8:30 at night. And I remember my ex-husband sort of complaining about it. I can't even remember now what that was about.
Yeah.
I know it was important at the time, and I made that decision to put that sort of effort into it. But I always now think about, like, is it really that worth it? Like, will I remember this? Like, is it? And the things that are worth it, you're going to remember. I'm really pleased I did X project and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
When it's important to you, and then there's others where you're like, what the hell was I doing? Like, so I think too, it's important to sort of think about that in terms of your life and your values and what's important to you. Is it going to matter on your deathbed?
Yes.
How's it going to affect your family or your people that are important to you? All of that sort of thing. So, that's been a huge thing for me.
Yeah. And I think kind of going back to some of the earlier conversation that we had is sometimes you've got to take the emotion out of it. We're really good at kind of connecting emotion with some of the things that we're going through. And if we can actually look at it as a fact rather than an emotion, because that's what things are, they're a fact. But we attach emotions, and then that leads to different consequences.
Yeah.
So, it's so terrible that you're leaving the public service, and then, that might stop you from doing something, which then stops you from doing something, and so forth and so forth. And it's, well, actually, you're just leaving the public service. It's not terrible. It's just you're leaving the public service. It's kind of taking all that emotion and that judgment away from the decisions that you're making.
But
to
also
try
you
and look at
can
it,
reverse
healthily.
those decisions. You can
That's
come
right.
back.
Nothing is
Like, do you know what I
forever.
mean? Like, nothing stops me from, if I make a decision or I go, oh, that was the wrong decision, you can generally always walk it back, or you may not go back to the same job or whatever, but you learn from it. So whatever, whether you say a mistake, like, so I often talk to my staff about, there's no mistakes, it's what you learn from them, because you always will get a learning from it. And I remember a leader I worked with, I made a horrible mistake that he could have really got very angry with me about. And he was like, so what have you learned from this? And I was like, well, I've learned to do this and do that. And let me tell you, I will always be very careful with the thing that I got wrong. Like, it has never left me. But the way he dealt with that mistake with me and showing me a lot of compassion and respect and that sort of thing, that's what I try and do with my staff now. Like, one of my staff made a mistake a couple of months ago that cost us a bit of money. And I was like, don't get emotional upset about this. What have you learnt from this? What are the changes in process that we're going to make? How are you going to make sure that we don't make this mistake again? Like, so I guess you learn from other people as well. And if you make a mistake in your life and, yes, sometimes you can hurt people, but you apologize and you hopefully can repair whatever damage has been done. And that's the same as, like, whether it's a personal mistake or a work mistake. And I think if you're genuine and authentic about it, then generally people are going to be quite nice about it. They're not going to be, oh, you did this, whatever. So just, I think that you've got to be kind to yourself.
I was just about to say, that, it's such great advice, is you've just got to bring compassion to the situation, but also compassion to yourself.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that, you flagged this before, is a lot of it when we're getting worried or upset or, whatever that emotion is about, whether it's a mistake or a learning or even just a situation. And I think sometimes, when you're getting feedback given to you or someone's opinion they're giving their opinion to you, it's our ego that pops up.
Yeah.
And it's our ego that gets a bit hurt or gets a bit embarrassed or gets a bit worried or, whatever it is. And, sometimes we just have to say, thanks, ego, really appreciate you, but, right now, actually, I'm okay. I need to deal with this.
Yeah.
I don't need to worry about that, or, whatever the answer is. But sometimes we let that ego kind of overtake and control us. And so it's okay, well, how do we not do that? And, ego can be our greatest friend, but it can be a little bit of an enemy in some ways as well.
True.
It's kind of trying to balance that out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like, getting feedback from people, whether it's work or personal life and that sort of thing, it's so important to, as you say, check the ego and to actually listen to it. And sometimes when you're getting that feedback, you can be like, oh, they've got no idea or whatever, and you can have your internal monologue. But sometimes, like, I really think that once you actually take a minute to listen to that without the ego, there can be some nuggets of truth there that you need to listen to. Now, yes, it's also that person's perspective and opinion about how they've perceived something that's happened. But I think you've got to be understanding that that's their perspective and also how it's impacted you. So I'm always very conscious of that, particularly when I'm giving feedback, but also in terms of taking feedback too. I'll admit that my ego can sometimes get in the way. And as you say, ego can be really good in terms of confidence and making sure that you do something that's scary. Like 18 months ago, I made another change into a job that I hadn't really done, but in the public sector, and then I was moving into this sort of role in the private sector, and I'd not done it before. And I had people sort of say to me, "You're not going to be able to do this job," and I was like, "No, I can. I know I can do this job," but ego, and I had imposter syndrome for a couple of months. I'd sit there in the role going, can I actually do this? And then I'm like, you're in the job, you're doing it. They will tell you, they'll give you feedback if they're not happy with you. But for months, I was like, am I okay at this? Am I doing okay? What's happening? And then I just thought, keep rolling. You've got a project, just keep rolling with the project. Someone's going to tell you if they're not happy with what you're doing, sort of thing. But I did listen too much to some of that feedback with people going, oh, you're not going to be very good at that, or you're not going to do well, or you're going to fail. And I'm really pleased that I didn't listen to that, because thankfully my ego got me through going, no, you've done this before, you can rock this, all of that sort of stuff. But, there are times now where I do get feedback and I have to go, oh, okay, yeah, actually I can see your point there. I have probably acted emotionally or something like that. So I think, yeah, it has, as you say, there's both positives and negatives.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I mean, I can talk to you for hours, to be honest, and we have done so, maybe over some glasses of wine and some cheese and that kind of thing. But I just have one more question for you that I was
Sure.
kind of ask, and it is the question of what is one piece of advice that you would give to our listeners if they're kind of sitting on the fence, wondering whether they should make a change, a decision to transform any element of their life, essentially. And it could be work, it could be career. It's a big question, but
yeah,
one that
I think, I don't know, that's a hard one, guys.
sorry.
No, that's what I feel like I needed to prepare for. I would say if you're on the fence about something, it obviously means that it's really important to you, that you don't want to get it wrong and that sort of stuff. But I have always found that if you sit with it long enough, and, as I said, I've done some spreadsheets, or I've done some pros and cons lists and all of that. But if you sit with it and weigh it up and realize what's valuable to you and work out, is it worth the risk, then you're not going to go wrong.
Yeah.
There should be no regrets in your life. So, as I said before, what's the worst that could happen? So I think what life has taught me over the last, particularly in the last 20 years with my career and stuff, is what's the worst that could happen.
Yeah.
So, and to live by that, because probably the one thing that is the worst thing ever is regret. And you don't want to have those regrets. So take the chance and, live your life, and hopefully, and for me, I just live life to the full and try and, forget the movie, but, suck the marrow out of life, sort of thing. So, I think that's probably the most important thing, is that if you're really sitting with something and it's really hard, just to evaluate, is it worth it, and are you going to have regrets, and just do it, as Nike would say.
And I think the key thing, it's about you. It's not about everybody else. It's about, it's your decision. And yes, everyone else can have an opinion and all of those sorts of things. But like you said, it's like, are you going to have regrets? Is it important to you? You're the pivotal person in the whole process. And I think, sometimes we forget that, because I think we're thinking that we should be doing this for somebody else or something else, or we need to make sure that everyone else is actually okay in the process. It's like, actually, that's their responsibility. Your responsibility is making sure that you're okay throughout this whole process.
Absolutely. And there's certainly, so with the weight loss surgery, I had thought about it earlier and that sort of stuff. And my mum, who is a very pivotal person in my life, she actually said to me, don't do it, you're cheating. That was 4 years earlier. And I did listen to it, and I had listened to other people during my life and that sort of thing. But it's coming to that time, and maybe it's an age thing, where I just go, actually, no, I'm important and I'm going to make this decision. Did I, of course, talk to my husband at the time? Yeah, absolutely. It wasn't just a single decision. It was going to affect a lot of people. But really, in the end, it was my decision. And so I think, yes, you might think about others and the impact it has, but really you've got to think about you. You are the most important person, and you've got to prioritize yourself. And for women, I think sometimes that can be hard too.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think, prioritize yourself. You are important. I think that's actually, if that's the message that we're sending everyone today after listening to our conversation, I think that's an absolutely brilliant message. And, but yeah, thank you so much, Maria, for all of your wisdom, sharing all the experiences that you've had over the last, little while, because from an outsider's point of view, watching you go through it, it's just been amazing. And I know it hasn't been smooth sailing for you, that your honesty and your rawness and just your ability to talk about it and share it, because you know that by doing that, it's not only keeping you accountable, there is that inspiration aspect. We're not going to, we're not going to push that away. The fact is, you will inspire people out there who are kind of, maybe wanting to not necessarily make the same decisions as you, but it's about making a big decision or a big change in life. So I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me. It's been lovely talking to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And to our listeners out there, I hope this has been a really, really beautiful conversation for you to listen to. If you want to reach out to Maria, do you want to share your Facebook page that you...
So you can follow me on, I've got a Facebook page called Making Maz, and then also on Insta at Making Maz.
Excellent. And I'll include them in the notes as well in our YouTube channel. So yeah, reach out to Maria if you've got any questions or want to chat further. She's always up for a chat.
I am.
I love that.
Slide into my DMs. That happens too. Not the dodgy guys wanting to be a sugar daddy though. I'll skip those.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll leave them to the side. So but thank you very much. And to our listeners, remember, you are the magic. It's all inside of you. It's all you that can do this. So keep on believing in yourself and go out there and live life and have some fun. And we'll see you next time on the You Are the Magic live chat. Thanks, everybody.